like me
This
to?
conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, let me just kick off here. So thanks everyone for joining us. Today we're going to be joined by Mike Love from SilverIP, a local wireless internet provider here in the Midwest, etc. Um, they're a partner of USA Voice and Data, and we're happy to have them join us today to give you guys an idea that there is more to connectivity than just fiber or cable. So with that, let me just go ahead. I'm going to hand off to Mike, and I'll wrap up at the end here. Mike, it's all you.
Thanks, Sam. Well, first off, I really appreciate everyone that came in for this call today. Um, and I definitely don't want to make this more difficult than it needs to be, but for those that aren't too familiar with Silver IP, basically at the easiest term, we're an internet service provider here in Chicago. If you want to go to the first slide, Sam. So Silver IP, just kind of a quick backstory on us. At the very beginning, we really don't spend any money on advertising, any money on marketing. This Summerfest event that we're sponsoring, that we were talking about earlier, is one of the first things we've ever even spent money on to sponsor. But we put everything back into our own products. So a lot of times, we're almost more surprised when people have heard of us versus when they haven't. We started in 2001 with actually on the residential side. We used to strictly just be a residential internet service provider. We brought this fixed wireless method, which is by no means a new way of internet service, but it's becoming, as you guys may know, more and more popularized in this day and age. So we brought this service into one building, one large condominium building in Chicago, and had a lot of success from that. And it was a Draper and Kramer building, if you're familiar with that property management company. And that led to us getting into another one of their buildings, to another one, to expanding and growing into what we are today. So I'm our vice president of sales here at SilverIP. I oversee our commercial side and our event internet side. So like I said, we started residential, but roughly 5 years ago, we expanded into the commercial side of business, because with our residential side of internet, we're able to achieve gigabit internet through fixed wireless, and true gigabit, not up to speeds like some of the traditional cable providers. So 1,000 megs up, 1,000 megs down for 40 or 50 bucks a month for people's condo, house, or apartment. So with that being so appetizing, we would obviously get a lot of calls from some of these residential clients of ours saying, "Hey, I love your guys' service, your support, local, it's great, but my business internet's terrible. We'd love to see if you guys can do that." So that's kind of what sparked our growth into, the commercial side. So I came over about 5 years ago to run that and expand that. Now today we're actually doing more commercial or business internet than we are residential, which is awesome. So we've grown to have here in Chicago alone over roughly 25,000 clients just within the couple mile radius of downtown Chicago. And when I get into our service side of things, I'll inform everyone why we're just in an urban market of Chicago and now Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The great thing about fixed wireless is the pricing of it. So all of this is a fiber internet backbone, but obviously the delivery method is fixed wireless, essentially setting these radios up on rooftops. So though it's an expensive install, it's a lot less expensive than digging up the ground and bringing new, fiber into buildings, businesses, or residential buildings. So there's a lot of cost cutting that goes into it. Secondarily, there's no taxes or hidden fees on the service, which you'll see with a traditional provider. And then just the last note there, just kind of going over the residential, commercial, and then we're also, and this kind of happened really the last year or two, but we've become the largest event internet provider in Chicago, and now with our Summerfest contract, really the biggest one in Wisconsin too. And I'll get into how all of that happened. But here in Chicago, Lollapalooza, Riot Fest, the Chicago Marathon, ESPN events, Harris Theater, Millennium Park. Not a lot of people know this, but we're the internet provider for all of those events. Truly behind the scenes, not so much public Wi-Fi for a lot of these because a lot of them don't want to do that. But behind the scenes, in the sense, we're providing the internet services for the event groups, all of the POS systems to work, all of the talent, and everything they need for their internet needs. So we've got into that, and it's become our third arm of internet services, but now it's growing into its own, and we're hiring just strictly event people, which is great. If you want to go to the next slide, Sam. So just a background on our service. So like I was saying, or like I alluded to, that we're not the only fixed wireless provider, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Bob, or formerly Bob, now Windstream, TowerStream. We're very similar in regards to how we provide our service, but this slide will give you an idea as to how we're actually very different from the traditional fixed wireless providers, where a true fixed wireless provider will deploy a strict point-to-point model where, to break it down, they're basically shooting the bandwidth from one building to the next building, whereas with us, we build out a mesh network. So we have multiple POPs, or points of presence, that are overseeing this, to where if we install one of your clients, whatever the address is, as long as we have line of sight to that building, we'll deploy our radio network on the rooftop, and then from there we'll have at least 2, 3, maybe even 4 different buildings that'll be tied into that. So meaning the great thing about that is the multiple redundancies. So say you have 3 other redundancies built in, we would need full mass power outages in 3 different buildings, and then we manage, control, monitor all of that in our NOC. So you'll have a primary connection that will oversee if there's any issues with that connection. If there's any interference, it automatically fails over to the next best one, and so on and so forth, to where we can truly, no internet provider can guarantee 100% uptime, but we're probably one of the only providers that can guarantee 99.99999 and truly adhere to it. So we're very popular with the trading firms, financial institutions, those kind of people that can't even have downtime of a millisecond, but we're also able to offer those same services and that same service level agreement to a traditional mom and pop restaurant, or residential building, or your apartment, whatever the case may be. So that's why this service is so popularized, and we don't have to worry about anything getting cut in the ground like you do with a copper or fiber connection. The only thing that can affect us in the air is a building or something interfering with our service. So like I was saying, with us only being in downtown Chicago, obviously people ask us all the time, they compare it to DirecTV. With DirecTV, weather affects it. So we probably get that question daily. Different from DirecTV is, DirecTV is shooting their service to a satellite in space, going through different atmospheric pressures, whereas with SilverIP, it's a strict point-to-point model. We're shooting rooftop to rooftop, and the only other thing that can affect fixed wireless service is distance. So a traditional fixed wireless provider, you can shoot these radios 20, 30, 50 miles, but curvature of the earth and weather will affect that. So we stay within a strict, really call it 10-mile radius, to where weather doesn't affect that, A, and then B, all of these are tied into multiple redundancies. So, if weather did affect this service, you could argue with how terrible the weather is in Chicago, this would be the worst city in the world to deploy this kind of network, but for us it doesn't, which is great.
Can I ask, the fiber internet sources and the backbone fiber underlying your fiber backbone?
So
talk about that, like the number of fiber internet source buildings you have downtown. Maybe there's a few that we know and love.
And I can send you guys all of that information. Our POPs or our fiber sources or data centers, we have roughly 30 of those. And then our total net rooftops is roughly 400, 400, including residential and commercial. Some of the rooftops, including we're the sole provider at the John Hancock building, from some of the smaller buildings to Chase Tower to assume many of the large residential or commercial buildings. SilverIP has some sort of infrastructure on top of them. So those 30 or so different POPs or points of presence, serve as the highest quality points, and then we never do too many hops away from those just to make sure your connection is true. So like I said, we can share that. And one of the other things we'd obviously love to share too when I get into the pricing side of things is our lit building lists or buildings that we have service in today. Because for those, that's great for us. That's great for you and your clients because the service is already there. It's already available to the tenants. All we would need to do essentially is just run a cable to the tenant suite. So the advantage of that is we can install in a matter of days as opposed to weeks or months. The installation is always free in lit buildings, and the pricing is generally very aggressive because the service is already there. We'd rather get tenants signed up on us than just have it sit there. So,
Right.
Just a more in-depth look at how we do our installations, and we pride ourselves on our quick installations, and selfishly we can do that because we're just Chicago based. Our entire company is based here in the South Loop of downtown Chicago. We only, like I said, service the downtown Chicago area, so none of our clients are more than a 30-minute drive. So getting to our installs from the time we get a contract to the time we deploy our services in your tenant's office, usually the longest that'll take is 2 weeks. I've seen some, even happen the same week, which is great for us. But essentially with the installation, a traditional provider comes in through the ground, through in-ground cabling, whereas SilverIP just flips that model upside down, and we obviously set up our network on the rooftop. From there, we'll bring our service down to a data closet somewhere centralized within the building. From the data closet, we'll install our switches in our network, and then we'll run, Cat 6 cabling or whatever it is to the tenant suite. Usually with larger buildings, obviously there's usually property managers, there's usually obviously building owners that we need to work with and get approvals with. We've successfully done that in 300 or 400 different buildings now in 2 cities, so it's not really an issue for us. And most property managers or building owners look at it as a way to, hey, this is a great service. All of my internet providers today are coming in through the ground. They're not really offering me anything different. These guys are offering me something different. I can get my service in through the roof and give it a new offering to my tenants. Additionally, this gives buildings true, near 100% redundancy. If one of your clients in our buildings has us as primary, Comcast or AT&T as backup, you got one through the air, one through the ground. It's very difficult for your tenant to lose, internet service. So as SD-WAN is getting more and more popular, which I assume you guys do a lot of, we've, been getting hit a lot more for those because, people are looking for unique providers like this. Also, we're very popular in areas where it's tough for traditional providers to get to, which I'll get into more if you want to go to the next.
Kind of like the near railroads and stuff like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So one of it's coming up in a couple slides. I'll talk into that, some of the advantages of using SilverIP. But that's exactly right. We find a lot of success with clients that struggle with, they want fiber speeds, but they're in a weird area. They're by train tracks. They're outside of the downtown area. The installation to get the fiber there is going to take 90 to 120 days and cost them $50,000. We have a lot of success with that because we'll do it in 10 days, and we'll do it for $500 or less usually. So here's kind of our coverage map. It's not the most in-depth, obviously, but kind of just gives you a sense as to how high we can go, technically up to Evanston, as low as far south as Hyde Park. We can extend our service to Oak Park, but if we wanted to do any of the suburbs, we would have to build an entirely new network. So instead of doing the suburbs, we stick to just the urban markets downtown. Essentially for us, it would cost the same to build a network in, say, Schaumburg, Illinois, as it would in, say, Miami, Florida. So, we'd like to go where there's more opportunity, basically. And that's kind of what grew us into now with all of our recent success and growth, to expand this into the Milwaukee area. And we've quickly become one of the largest providers there, even though we've only been there just under 2 years. And as this internet service is becoming more and more popular, we're looking to take the success from Milwaukee and Chicago and start expanding into other cities, which is great. And then if you want to go to the next one, this just gives you an idea of the Milwaukee area. I don't know how much business you guys do in the Wisconsin area, but definitely think of us now when you're up there.
Mike, what happens when you've got like one of your dishes or radio antennas, etc., on a building downtown, and somebody's throwing up a brand new building right next door and stuff like that?
Yeah.
You run into those issues, and how do you keep tabs on all the construction that's going on downtown? Because there's a lot of cranes and everything down there.
Yeah, it's crazy. Actually, that's honestly one of our not biggest issues is maybe not the right word, but it's something we deal with constantly just because the city is constantly changing. The good thing with us, again, different from the tower streams or wind streams fixed wireless deployment, is we have these multiple redundancies built in. So good news is with a lot of new developments that are being built, we know about this a year, if not more, in advance. So we're able to, appropriately plan. So if a building goes up and we see that it's going to, block our line of sight, we already have other redundancies built in and other lines of sight, that we can switch over to, which is good. Or worst case scenario, if we just need to move our equipment on the rooftop to a different part of the rooftop. These installations are pretty flexible. We'll have a lot of people that go up on the rooftop and they want to add, a bar, or they have some sort of window washing unit. So there's a lot of times where we need to move our equipment, and it's pretty easy to do, which is great, even though I don't handle any of that, but it's pretty easy. So this slide here kind of gives you some insight into our pricing. I would take it with a grain of salt in the sense that we don't like to have cookie cutter pricing like a AT&T or Comcast, because in buildings, say it's a 30-story building where there's 100 businesses in there, we just do one installation on the rooftop. We don't have to do 100 different installations on the rooftop to serve those 100 businesses. So once we get our equipment there, that's most of our cost, to give you guys more information than you need. But we can get very aggressive on pricing in those buildings, whereas if it's a standalone built business or building with just one business in there for us to service, we can obviously still do it as long as we have line of sight, but our pricing may be a little bit higher than what you see here. Or like I said, in those buildings where it can get aggressive, I've seen our pricing, even be half this, if not less. So, but this kind of just gives you an idea to where, hey, my client has 30 megs today. He's paying X. I know SilverIP is usually in this area. Working with us is very easy too. Like I said, I oversee all of the sales side, so all quotes can just be sent into myself or Michelle, who I know a lot of you work with, and you'll get quotes back the same day. We'll get that quote in the morning. We'll check out line of sight, confirm that. Once that's confirmed, you'll get pricing same day. You let us know, where we need to be, and a lot of times we can work with our pricing team too and get there, which is good.
And Mike, obviously, you would basically be providing static IPs as needed and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we can do that too. We always, like most providers, will give out one static IP at no cost, and then more additional can be purchased. They can purchase blocks or whatever slash whatever number they may need. We can provide that no problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then we do too, and I didn't really allude to it here in the slides, but one of the reasons we have so much success with our partners is, SilverIP doesn't try to be something that we're not. We're an internet service provider. We don't try to mess around with the voice and data side of things, cloud side of things, et cetera, to where we know what we do it really well. And the other side with the voice and everything else, you guys do well. So, we like to just do the internet side, and we're not going to pretend to be something that we're not and try to take one client and turn it into whatever else. It's strictly just internet. We do Wi-Fi, managed services, Wi-Fi on that side, but IT and managed services, desktop support, things like that, it's better served for a managed service company or provider. But um, so I would say that the advantages, obviously, you can see here on that sheet, but I really have them listed out. 5 things that we look for our partners to think of SilverIP. For instance, the installation time frame. Unfortunately, so many clients and businesses we find, when they're moving to a new location for whatever reason, internet's the last thing they think of. We've gotten calls for people that are moving in a week and they need internet service in their new location and they're just looking into it today. So if you need someone that can do an installation in less than 30 days, we can do that all day. And like I said, we try to pride ourselves on completing all installs in 1 to 2 weeks, even in buildings where we have zero infrastructure. We're very familiar with the process of getting our service in. We're very good at working with the property managers, the building owners, helping them feel very comfortable with our installations, making these installations non-intrusive so we don't ruin the aesthetic of some of these great Chicago buildings. And we try not to add any new punctures, penetrations to buildings either, to where it's rubbing, I guess, the building owners the wrong way by us bringing our service in. The second being the service level agreement, the 99.99% uptime that we truly guarantee. If any of your clients are suffering with outages, if they're suffering with issues, up to quote unquote speeds where they're paying for 100, but they run a speed test and they're only getting 10 on the upside. That's where SilverIP can come in. If we give a client 100 megs, that's 100 megs symmetric, and that's a minimum threshold that we have to achieve. So 100 up, 100 down, 24/7, 365.
Mike,
Price. Sorry, go ahead.
For a client that starts off with like a 50 meg or something like that, can you just talk about how easy it is for you guys to like up the bandwidth, and is there different like sort of premise-based equipment from within the tenant side that would need to get replaced if they were wanting to go from say 50 to 250 or something like that?
Yeah, great question. So with all of our deployments, when we install our service new into a building, we bring in a minimum of 1 gig that would be usable to each tenant of the building, residential or commercial. Even if you're, like this example, your client's only purchasing 50 megs, we're still bringing in a gigabit available in case that very instance they need to increase their speeds, or their neighbor wants service, etc., and we can go all the way up to 10 gigs. Our speeds offering for most businesses is really anywhere from the 20 by 20 meg to gigabit or 1,000. And then to answer your question in regards to moving up or down, it's very easy to do. So we manage, control, monitor, own our entire network. There's no third parties. It's the one throat to choke model, to where if they start with 50 megs, we're monitoring that, and even proactive in the sense that we can send them bandwidth reports. Hey, here's how you're using it. You may want to increase your speeds because we are consistently seeing you hitting that 50 or more mark. So we can do that very easily. And in regards to the actual infrastructure outside of their office and on the building, there's nothing that we need to change. So if someone wants to increase from 50 to 250, we can have that done for them in 5 minutes tops.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's very easy. We can make it burstable. We don't obviously like to advertise that as much because then, we've had people take advantage of it where they're like, hey, let's do 50 this week and let's try 100 this week, and this week's gonna be slow. Let's go down to 10. So, but we can do that, and we do that for events as well. So, the third thing, then going back to it, kind of the selling points for SilverIP is price. Obviously, we can't, we're not going to be as low as a DSL connection or a cheap Comcast or AT&T connection. But like anything in this world, you kind of get what you pay for. But at the same time, we're giving you fiber quality, if not better, but we're not giving you the fiber pricing too. We kind of find ourselves somewhere in between the DSL pricing and the fiber pricing. And then the biggest thing, where we save people on price-wise is the NRC. We only charge, $500 for an install. A lot of times we'll even waive that too, just to make it easier for the client. You'll never see 10,000, 100,000 installation costs with us. It's, 500 or less every single time, which makes it very easy. So the price on the MRC or NRC side is great for us. And then the fourth thing that I have listed here, we kind of just talked about, is the speed side. So the 20 to a gig, and then like I said, we can go up to 10 gigs, which we've quoted out before for like an entire city, but no one needs that much, but we can do it if they want it.
Mike, the office buildings downtown that have riser management companies and so on and so forth, right? Your IMG, Rex, and so on and so forth. Is the customer still having to pay that riser management fee for the install?
Yeah, again, really great question. So we love working in buildings where there is no riser management fee because we have all SilverIP installers and engineers are full-time staff here. So we never outsource any of our installations, which is great, and clients obviously like because there's never anything screwed up with that. But in buildings where there are riser managers, of course, we work with them. The fees depend. So, a lot of times we'll push those fees to the client just because whether they get service from SilverIP or whatever provider, it's that the fees from IMG or Rex are going to be the same no matter what provider they have for the most part. Because most of that cost is basically from the switch to the unit. So if it's a juicy enough deal for us, a big enough client, of course we'll be more than happy to cover that cost or split the cost with them. If they're looking for $100 internet and they have a $3,000 fee from IMG, we may pass on that, but we are very happy to look into all of those, and we have a good relationship with all the riser managers too. We're very familiar with them.
Cool.
And then the fifth and final advantage, I would say, for us in regards to why sell SilverIP would just be the localized support. That's the thing that we care about the most. That's what we put a lot of our money back into, like I was alluding to, as opposed to spending on advertising, marketing. We put it back into our products, making our product better and making sure our support is better. And that's how we've gotten our name. If you go to Google or Yelp or Facebook, it's difficult to find negative reviews about us, and that means a lot to us too. Even though 20 years ago we were a startup, we still operate with a startup mentality where one bad review or one bad email could put us under, which obviously is not true at all, but we still operate that way. And you'll see that on our support side, 24/7, 365 local support. You know who you're talking to every time you call in. Proactive model versus reactive, because we're constantly monitoring the network. 9 times out of 10, we'll call the clients and let them know there may be an issue on site before they even do, and people really like that. And really just the main thing is knowing if something does go wrong, they know who's handling it, how it's being handled, and our clients become very sticky because of that. So we provide even what we call a concierge level of support, to where we don't just give you a circuit and say goodbye. We can go as far as being on site, plugging that in, setting up the network. If they don't have IT people, obviously the static IP, the gateway information, all of that we'll set up. A lot of hand holding in regards to the installation, because we obviously find if the installation is done correct and it's handled by us or handled by a mixture of us and you guys, generally we're not going to hear from those clients again. So, and that's kind of the advantages of working with us.
Cool. Well,
Um,
Mike,
Go ahead.
thanks very much. I don't know if anyone's got any questions they want to throw out there. More than welcome to do so. That'd be great. And equally, if those questions come to you later, don't hesitate to just reach out to me. If you do have an opportunity that you want to take a look and see if SilverIP is available and stuff like that, just like any opportunities, you can just register them at our website. Under the partners tab, there's register an opportunity. Kind of looks like, let's take a look here. In the partners, register an opportunity right here. And we just need your basic information, the company's address and contact details, etc., so we can get that opportunity registered with you. And then obviously we'll be working with Mike and Michelle and the team over there at Silver to check availability and get you pricing and stuff like that. So with that, I'd like to just thank Mike for your time
Mike,
today.
Mike, we have a couple questions in the chat, if you can address them.
Here we go.
Sorry.
Ross asks if SilverIP can be used for voice over IP, and how is the latency? And the other
Yeah.
one is, Rich, can we get a buildings list? Because Richard definitely has some customers downtown.
Yeah. Okay, I'll answer both of those. So, working backwards, the building list, I will update that and send it to everyone. Good thing for us is we lately we've been adding like 1 to 3 buildings a week. So I want to make sure to send you guys the most recent one in both of our cities. And then 2, and I didn't bring that up, so thank you. The voice over IP side of things, most businesses have voice over IP of all of our clients. I would say probably 95% of them have it, and it's very successful with SilverIP. Honestly, I haven't had any issues in regards to any of our setups with voice over IP, which is nice. It works just probably similar as to how a lot of your fiber providers work. Taking it one step further, though, because we have all of the access to all the data centers here, our latency is milliseconds tops, if not less than that. So as long as they have the right infrastructure in place and firewalls and everything else, and they're getting it from a good voice over IP provider, they're good to go. I would say we could even provide the stats on it, but we maybe get 2 to 3 calls a year in regards to voice over IP, as opposed to internet or TV or anything else that we do service wise. So
and bearing in mind you're actually got a whole bunch of residential customers that are using your service for VoIP. That's a non-existent number, Mike. That's incredible.
It's non-existent. Yeah, we find the only time there's issues with it is with the setup, with either their IT support or their outsourced IT people not setting it up properly, or just not having the right equipment. But if everything's done right from the beginning, like anything, it's going to work fine. And I'm not sure why, and maybe it's because there's a lot of asymmetric, fixed wireless providers that shoot these things over crazy distances and have, horrible latency. Some of these other competitors out there, but with us, it's complete opposite. We get asked it all the time, but we just ask any of your customers, just try us out, once, and especially on the voice over IP side too, and just see how easy it is and see that it's everything that I've said it is, and from there it'll be a lot easier working with us going forward.
That's awesome.
And I'm sorry, I don't even have the chat. Oh, here we go. Okay. Yeah, if there's any other questions, though, I'm happy to help, but I will send over the
Yeah.
building list too.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
regards to voice over IP, Ross and Rich and Ariel, I actually have a customer that has a Jive phone system that's also using Silver IP internet, and I have never heard any problems from them.
Right.
That's awesome.
And we've just turned up a customer in Milwaukee as well, right? That's using Vonage and Silver IP. Isn't that right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So again,
The la-
if you're with a legit voice over IP provider and you're using a Silver IP connection, you'll be good as gold.
Yeah, and we're agnostic too in regards to voice over IP providers. Just you guys pick whatever you think is best, and we'll work with any of them, and have worked with all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Any more questions, observations, anything? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up here. And again, thanks so much for everyone taking their lunch to be with us. And Mike, awesome job. Thanks for the presentation, etc. We're going to get a recording of this this presentation up on our website, and we look forward to doing a lot of business with Silver IP in the years to come here. It's a great partner of ours, and I know they're going to do an awesome job for you and your clients, guys. So don't hesitate to let us know if you've got a client prospect, and let's check out some availability and make it happen. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Mike.